What's up guys, Phantom here, back with episode 51 of my F1 2019 career mode, as we are going to circuit Paul Ricard for the French Grand Prix for round 8 of season 3. As you can see in the race, it's supposed to rain and our power unit upgrade has failed, as McLaren has jumped Haas in the development there, as our part has sadly failed, which is really important because France is a power track. As we will move on to the race.
Welcome to qualifying for this weekend's French Grand Prix. The teams are making their last-minute adjustments before the lights go green and the fight for pole position gets underway. Joining me in the commentary box today, Anthony Davidson. This is really the moment that the pressure picks up, Ant, I think. All of that data from practice will have gone into formulating the team's strategies today. It's obviously incredibly important to the teams to try and stick to the game plan. Is it just down to the driver to execute that?
Simple as that, isn't it, Crofty? The teams clearly have their strategies in place, but now it's time just to let them get out there and do what they do best. But you are right, it really is up to the drivers out there, not just to deliver on teams' predictions, but also to deal with the things they can't predict. Clear focus and a calm head, that's really what they need.
As we start out here in Q2, as the sun is absolutely blinding, as it is right in our eyesight, as we take a pretty shallow line there to get the power onto the front stretch here to start our flying lap here at Paul Ricard, as it is a very open track, as we will abuse curbs like that one as much as possible, as the game really allows you to, as we come to the third sector here into the last complex of corners, as we will take it normal this time for the actual flying lap, as we will take the DRS and stay as left as possible, as we will come across the line for P4 in Q2, as our teammate Raikkonen is in P6, as we will move on to Q3. As we come to the end of Q3 here, as I like to take a pretty close line to the apex around this left-hander. It's very much more consistent for me, instead of going wide and trying to sweep back, as we start our flying lap here, as you're going to stop, break between the two curbs, take as much curb as possible, and on the second curb we take too much there and we kind of slide out there. As we come onto the last two corners here, we take it very good, as we come on taking it down to first gear for the last corner, as we will stay as left as possible, as we will come across the line and be P7, as our teammate Raikkonen is in P10, as first to 7th is within 3/10 of each other, as we are very competitive this year compared to everybody else, as we move on to the race.
Welcome to Le Castellet as we return from across the Atlantic for the 2019 French Grand Prix. Reintroduced to the Formula One calendar just last year after an absence of almost 3 decades. The circuit Paul Ricard, where racing legends such as Alain Prost gave us some Turn 1 excitement before Valtteri Bottas and Sebastian Vettel and a commanding victory from Lewis Hamilton gave us a brilliant race last year. What, I wonder, will it have in store for us this season? We have 15 corners here at the circuit Paul Ricard, 6 to the left and 9 to the right. The rain is coming down and making for a slippery racing surface, but luckily there is plenty of runoff available, and hopefully we'll be able to avoid bringing out a safety car during today's Grand Prix. It's not going to be plain sailing for our drivers today, although with the sky falling as it is, perhaps sailing isn't too far from the truth. Anthony Davidson, could be a wet one today. Great to have you with us. What are your thoughts?
It is a touch damp, isn't it? Well, as a driver, there are 3 big things to worry about when racing in these kind of conditions: standing water, tyre temperature and visibility. Judging distance to the cars around you is really tricky when you're driving through the vast amounts of spray that these wet weather Pirelli tyres kick up.
It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. Lucas Weber lines up on pole position and Max Verstappen lines up alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Leclerc, Butler, Romain Grosjean, Oldtimer, Hamilton, Norris, Raikkonen and Carlos Sainz. Stroll, Kvyat, Valtteri Bottas and Vettel. They've taken a grid penalty. Russell, Ricciardo, Nico Hülkenberg and Kevin Magnussen. Perez and Antonio Giovinazzi starts from the back of the grid. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track.
As we sit here on the grid in P6 after Vettel's grid penalty, as it is pretty damp, but we are on dry tires as we are off, as we get a pretty bad start there, as everybody's just starting to swamp us there, as we are already down to P7, maybe P8 if Stroll can get ahead of us, as we have to mount the curb and leave him some space, as we are going to drag race him down to the turn 3 here, as we are going to go in and lose the front end and then careen into him and lose the back end, as we have no grip, as we have obviously not raced all weekend on these type of conditions, as I'm pretty new to it, as even through like this corner here I'm really struggling for grip, as Norris is right in our slipstream, as it looks like they're just a human centipede right now, as I'm going to brake normally and then out of nowhere comes Norris, as the AI normally don't give me any space, so I won't give them any, as I kind of lose the back end on the exit of the chicane in the middle of the straight there, as Norris is a little bit farther back. He can get more of a slingshot effect on us, as we are running a pretty much a dry setup here, as Norris easily, as we just have no confidence here on the brakes going into that chicane, but we do have straight line speed, as we are running 2.5 wings on our arrow, as we have to get out of the throttle there and still get loose. But coming into this very awkward left-hander, we go way too deep into the corner and we lose the position to Norris as we come back onto the straight. This time we have DRS, unlike what Norris had, as we will come from probably half a second, maybe more back, as we will easily just glide to the inside of him, as we will brake and barely make it, as we started to get a little bit close there, as we are coming into the pits at the end of this lap here, as we are coming in and make sure to stop barely, as it is 37 miles an hour here as we come into the pits, as it's very slow. We have managed to hold Hamilton there in the pits, as the rest have done there, as Norris has done, as well as we come in and we will have a 2.1 and get ahead of Hamilton. So Hamilton, who was ahead of us, will rejoin behind us, as we will rejoin the track in P17. As we cut to later in this lap, as our teammate Raikkonen is in, as Grosjean is also out of the race, who was ahead of us is out of the race, so that makes our job a little bit easier. So we've netted 2 positions from the pit stop here, as Grosjean is out of the race, and we jumped Hamilton, as Kvyat here on his old mediums should be a sitting duck, as we kind of get a little bit silly there and we really should just force our way up the inside there, as we get a warning for contact. As we managed to catch up with Leclerc and Butler here on lap 11, we're going to go around the outside of Leclerc, as we lose the back end massively, as we had to really try to correct there, as we still lose the back end, as we're in a drag race with Leclerc here, as Butler's getting away, and even Verstappen and Weber are not that far ahead of us there with 2 laps to go, as we will come on to lap 12, as we still have to go a little bit wide there not to lose the back end. Very easily, glide past Butler there, who definitely does not have the straight line speed like we do. But as you can see, they're about 2 seconds ahead of us, as Verstappen and Weber, as we will come home P3 as we lose the back end of the last corner, as Weber will win the French Grand Prix, as we will come home 3rd after starting in 6th.
Well done, good finish. You stepped up and achieved what we asked. Good job.
And great work from the Haas team. They take a famous win here today. Talk to me, Ant. What was it that set them apart from the competition today?
Well, I honestly feel it was down to the driver and car today. I mean, we can talk driver skill all day, but if you don't have a solid team to back that, you're never going to get anywhere. When you hit that sweet spot of having both an excellent driver and an incredible car, that's when you see results like those we witnessed today.
There aren't many teams, you know, as they come out onto the podium now, who could do what Haas have managed to accomplish here. It's hard to believe just how competitive they've already become. An amazing victory. Let's see how the driver standings have changed. This result narrows the gap between our championship leader and the rest of the standings. After an incredible day of racing, who was your driver of the day, Ant?
Well, you can't fault anything that Sergio Perez did out on the track today. He drove flawlessly, making him an easy pick.
Let's move on to the constructors. Haas make it to the top of the table. Well, Ant, an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who joined us, and we'll see you for the next one.